Marvel still struggles with the Falcon and Winter Soldier endings. We did a better job with Vandivis, but at least the whole guru of questions the series leaves mainly due to the huge number of characters. To devote time to each of which failed. The series left more questions and rods for the future than answers. Nevertheless, in the next couple of minutes we will try to figure it out. Samples in a situation like the MCU world without restoring borders. Why Sharon Carter sculpt a villain? Which team will John Walker join? And why all this racism? In the final, all the answers are waiting for you in the next couple of minutes. But it is difficult for us to even summarize what we have because it is not completely clear where to start. Therefore, let's move from simple goodness to victory. Dune to his side, the series finally threw John. Proved to be on the good side. On the side of evil, on the contrary, Sharon Carter suddenly left. The main storyline of the series was the Resource Management Committee's vote on the refugee flag smash. Led by Carly, they attacked warehouses to provide the camps with resources. But the council wanted to arrange a vote and send all refugees to their home countries, which is problematic because for 5 years of their absence, their homes were trivially occupied. And the guys have nowhere to go. This vote and tried to rip off the flag with Misha that the heroes successfully prevented. However, Sam's heartfelt speech promoted Carly's ideas and, as the bald one later said, the vote still did not take place. That is, the dwarves seemed to have lost, but won because the new Captain America continued her work. HRN Carter, as it turned out, was genuinely behind Carly and this is exactly her idea, which she will continue. Such are the pies. After watching any show or films based on comics, there is always a desire to get acquainted with the original source, namely 6 comics in Russian. There have already been several publications telling about the fate of Bucky Barnes. If you're curious about what Bucky did as an agent of the Soviet Union, read the Winter Soldier comic. Funeral March here considered peace. Cap's friend is completely blown away by the dead. Looking for a huntsman and generally appears to be this bad guy. In the 60s, all the secret services of the world trembled with fear at the mention of the Winter Soldier, and here we find out why. After such reading, the stories about Bucky's life are just right after the Avengers saved him from the zombie programs of the Soviets. In one of these comics, disturbing stories of Hawkeye and Winter Soldier, Bucky and Hawkeye find out that the Black Widow may be alive and go in search of her. Love the cool detective buddy movie So on you comic Second Chances. By the way, he just came out of print recently. The Winter Soldier becomes a mentor for a street bully who needs discipline, but this Hydro tries to put a stick in his wheels. The whole story with voting is one big attempt by Marvel to beat the progressive agenda, and in pursuit of this about logic. Unfortunately we forgot to explain the inconsistency. We will go during the second click. Hulk. Half of the inhabitants of the land that Thanos wiped returns, but in 5 years the surviving half, after suffering and burial, made a new world in which those who returned after tears of happiness faced problems. I am his mother. The planet has changed, the boundaries have become conditional, anime jobs of many are corny, taken by other people, that is, many had nowhere to return as the series described indirectly. Vandivision. Spider-Man. The developed countries quickly solved the problem, but the third world countries got it. They are overrun with refugee camps with nowhere to go. A couple of which we saw in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The Committee for the Allocation of Resources is trying not to help, but it turns out that this moment is logical for you, because bureaucracy is a viscous and slow thing, and for example Danya, who was tied up, Carly dies from illness due to lack of medication. Iron Card, who after the Civil War went to Mandibur, where she became the head of the mafia, after the clique also disappeared and returned, burned to the government, hired Carly with the goal. Create super soldiers, rule the planet. Carly Sharon betrayed her from stealing serums and used them to help refugee camps, which consisted of robbing warehouses with the murder of guards. Global instead. In the fact that governments are trying to return life to the mainstream, which was before the clique of Thanos. And Karl of Locksmaster wants everything to stay the same, that is, no borders in one world. And this is where the fun begins. Technically, Carly is an anarchist who not only does not recognize the laws, was initially confused in her own motives. She seems to be helping the refugees, but at the same time opposing them. After all, just the government wants to return everything to square one, let it sucks. Realizing this, advice even launches a vote on the compulsory creation of a border for sending refugees to their home. However, Carl, for some reason, against and apparently wants them to continue to live in camps without medicine. What is worse against these? 7. Pushing soulful speech. What is its meaning? If you subtract the hints of the lumen, his skin is absolutely dawned clear. Okay, no one closes the borders, and the camps are not disbanded. It turns out that the refugees will continue to rot and receive crumbs of resources. It turns out that the person who returned after clicking cannot return to your apartment, or the government will magically take trillions out of nowhere and give them to the refugees. In general, what the son tried to explain in his speech is absolutely incomprehensible. A feeling is created that the guys perfectly thought out the part about skin color and depression, and about the universe itself. The phrases were left to the intern working at Zao Cheeseburgers. After all, when Sam asks not to call Carla a terrorist, the hair gets up. And who is she then? Did she not blow up warehouses and kill ordinary hard workers? Guards are the same lemur who just did his job following orders. Everything that Flexmaster didn't gets under the direct definition of terrorism from textbooks. However, for some reason the series is trying to make us empathize with terrorists who, again, make the lives of poor refugees only harder by dooming them further. Thank God, at least from a soldier who did his job, they did not mold a villain. Again, it is absolutely unclear why the series was building a hate to the military, who avenged the terrorists for the murdered friend. Of such logic, Tony Stark, who became for the murder of a doctor in a cave in Afghanistan, is also bad. Yes, they can discuss the situation did not begin as we saw. John was simply erased from the public's radar. But the new job everyone was waiting for made it a mysterious story which led from the comics. We learned that at least a woman has excellent connections in the government. John was wearing a new suit in the same building where the senator sat, and judging by the words, "Everything is yours." Kira, the position of Shadow Captain America, that is, the one who solves uncomfortable issues that can cause negative reactions in the press. It canonically fit into the concept of the US agent in the comics and allows to judge that wives will be something like an anti-hero at the level of a Punisher. And on the other hand, the connections in the government of BL again hint that before us one of the teams of such anti-heroes is being formed. Is it about Thunder, Miles, or Dark Avengers? Guessing it is pointless. It could be these, and maybe Marvel plans to introduce two teams at once. The main thing worth noting is the birth of the team of anti-heroes, which took place in the final series. She didn't approve. She, like the head of Madripoor, one of the main mafiosi of the planet, needs power and money. Sharon's motives are also clear. While the guys in funny costumes were fighting with a purple eggplant at the girl who betrayed the government, they hammered that he was throwing a shadow at Steve Rogers, who even made poor Sharon look bad. In the formation of Carter on the villainous path raises no questions, but her goals are very fortunate. Dialogue in the post-credit scene hinted what was what talking on the phone. Sharon mentioned that the super soldiers did not grow together. That is, as in the comics, being a power broker, she still planned to trade serum. However, now, as it is clear from the same conversation, the Sharon trade will be government secrets and devices. Carter hinted at the goal of Carly, accusing her of wanting to rule the planet ambitiously, but with all due respect, team a couple of strong obstetricians for this, not even hundreds of super soldier serums. So Carter still has a trump up his sleeve, which we will recognize in future projects. Which one? This is a good question. On the one hand, we can assume a hypothetical season 2 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The creators hinted at him, and the showrunners did say that in the 6th episode we will see a hint of a hypothetical continuation of Sharon to a certain Green can be considered this hint, but there are a half-dozen series in the Marvel schedule, and it is doubtful that Kevin Feige will wait 2 years to continue the storyline. By then both Thor and Doctor Strange will be out. We build our theories, everyone will forget about Sharon's minor showdowns. The idea of a continuation should follow in the near future, and a series about a secret invasion suggests itself as an obvious candidate. It is the most vague so far. She of all the Skrulls in the MCU seems to be good, but somehow it is necessary to invade the Earth, and this clearly intersects with the goals of Sharon Carter, who can help. Moreover, she spoke on the phone. With the endings of the Winter Soldier series they coped better with Vandivis, but how can Marvel's appearance make the insight in the Civil War? And some of them will be angry. Considering what a mess is going on in the writers' offices, this is readily believed. After all, the mess, unfortunately, is already a fact. Started as a universe whose playbill is just there. Marvel turns into a monster, where the events of films and TV series take place. Hell, understand when. The Black Widow will be in the past. Spider-Man 2 seems to have been right after defeating Thanos. Falcon and Winter Soldier through half a year after the Avengers 4. WandaVision somewhere in the middle. And where the rest of the projects will be, only the tourist knows. A simple example of a mess of a scene from Far From Home, where Parker is asked for his passport at the airport, and this happens in the first weeks after Avengers 4, and the whole damn mix of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series is a law on borders, which, in theory, was never adopted. And according to the same idea, the world continues to be relatively uniform, and passport control, and as such have not really been restored. That is, the flight of the Spider should have looked different. And the topic of refugees, if it is as global as the Falcon and Bucky drew, the problem should have been mentioned too. In general, many more retroactive corrections and explanations of the one killed by the 5-year-old powder and clicks of the timeline await us. Well, what about the Falcon and Bucky? At least their storylines finished perfectly. Bake found the strength to live on and made peace with his past by returning an unnecessary notebook to the psychologist. Everyone is now the new Captain America, if we discard a couple of funny costumes, and the plot of Case and Bradley also came out great. Aspen, where his statue is added to the Captain America Museum, and is completely capable of knocking out a tear. The only problem is that these branches plot against the background of a trillion others are lost. Was it worth to devote screen time to the winter on which? As a result, the series was scored with too many characters, and in an amicable way, a couple more episodes were needed so as not to leave some questions in the air. The same castle as an example seems to have fulfilled the mission and seemed to have received the location of the lead, but what will happen next? We asked the same questions after the WandaVision. From Sokol as a Winter Soldier stepped on the same rake. We seem to have watched the ending, but there is no feeling of the ending as such. Nevertheless, in comparison with the Scarlet Witch TV series, this project did not cut it with a knife to heart. Little was promised to us. In general, the project turned out to be worthy. It's funny that in the last scene of the credits at the end, they rebranded and called the series not The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Captain America and the Winter Soldier. To present Marvel for understatement is not worth it. In the end, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier earned their 7 points out of 10. Until next time, friends.